Reddit, when did doing the right thing horribly backfire? My friends in college had to hill and dissect mice. There were too many etherized mice for the class. So they got the leftover little dude and carefully revived him. Gave him water. Stroked his fur. And then took him outside and released him on the lawn outside the cafeteria. Free crumbs for life. He made it several yards before a bird swooped down and grabbed him. I accidentally walked out of my local deli without paying for my soda. So being the good person that I am, I went back in to pay for it. 2 minutes later I come back out to find that my bike had been stolen. I was really invested in the company I worked for and loved working there. They got bought out by another company who treated employees like dirt. About a month in we were having server issues with one of our migrated servers and I stayed an extra 8 hours to help get it back up and running before the next workday. Then the next day I worked my regular 9 hours, our lunch break. And then came back in at 10 PM and worked an extra 4 hours to help resolve an issue with a client in China. On the third day I was so tired I slept through my alarm and was probably about 2 hours late. My boss had a fit telling me how unprofessional it was to show up late and if I did it again I would be fired. He also pulled the "I don't want to hear any of your excuses. Just listen to me" rant. Which I find to be incredibly unprofessional. I work salary and wasn't compensated for any of my time. Thankfully I no longer work there. I was in the parking lot of a store one time when a lady dropped a bunch of stuff off her cart. She was having trouble picking up a box of bulk items. I told her that I would help her and we both picked the box up and put it in the trunk of her car. She then sprayed me with pepper spray and screamed. I was left confused at why I was attacked as she almost ran me over driving out of there. A work friend of mine was going through a nasty divorce. Even though it wasn't finalized he was seeing another woman at work on the down low. But everyone at the office had suspicions. Having dealt with divorce before, I sent him an email explaining that people were talking and he may want to be more discreet as to not exacerbate things with his divorce. He told the down low girl what I had said. She told me to mind my business. I explained over and over again that I meant well and it was nothing against her. She convinced him not to talk to me anymore and we haven't spoken since. TL. Doctor gave advice about divorce. Lost a friend. I offered my seat to an elderly lady in the bus. Turned out she wasn't that old and felt offended so she screamed at me. A friend of mine was walking down the street late at night when he saw a man lying in an alleyway. The guy looked as though he'd been really hurt and was asking for help. My friend approached him to find out how badly he'd been hurt and what he needed to do. When he did, a bunch of guys ambushed him, beat him up and stole all his money. The whole thing had been set up just to lure him into a vulnerable situation. It's fucking terrible to take advantage of someone's kindness like that. Absolutely refusing to let a drunk buddy drive his wife home. Apparently, I'm no fun anymore. It isn't safe. No matter how not drunk they think they are. Tonight you get lucky and reach home alright. Next time, who knows? Being a killjoy is still better than being dead. This guy was saying very depraved things to my girlfriend and I told him to apologize. After it was clear he wouldn't, I tried to walk away and devalue his opinion but he followed me insisting we fight. After dodging 2 of his swings, I knock him in the brow, cutting him open and ending the fight. Later on though, his friends found me at the bar down the street and beat the living crap out of me. I once refused to have sex with a girl because she was, at the time, super messed up on drugs and I just didn't think it was right. She couldn't even remember who I was. I stayed the night to take care of her instead. Next day, she told all our mutual friends that I raped her. It didn't end well for me. I heard of a story when one guy was riding a bike when he saw an elderly lady trying to cross the street while attempting holding multiple bags of groceries. He put his bike down to help this woman. Just as he crossed the street with her, he turned and witnessed his bike being stolen. A lawyer friend of mine represented a guy pulled over for speeding or something. Asked by the officer, "Do you have any firearms?" The man responds honestly. Well, I have one locked up at home but not on me. Turns out, since the time that he legally purchased and registered his firearm, Congress had passed a law making it a federal felony for anyone ever convicted of domestic assault to own or possess a firearm. Problem is, even though the Commonwealth had a list of people convicted of domestic assault and a list of people with registered firearms, nobody let our guy know that when he answered this question a bit too honestly, he was confessing to a federal felony with a minimum sentence of 5 years in the pen. Edit, to stop annoying you assimilator. Itches be getting drunk every night and saying Strombert. We want the D. I say Itches. You drunk. I'll give you the D tomorrow. The next day. Itches be like I was drunk. I don't want the D no more. I should stop making good decisions. There was a guy at work who would always talk about bringing a gun to work and showing our boss he won't take it anymore and he can understand why those people shoot up their place of employment. I told my boss about it, and after an investigation, they fired the guy. I think I did the right thing. And maybe it saved the lives of people at work. But I just found out that he killed himself last week because of it. Gave a one-eyed homeless guy $5. He wandered off, apparently telling other homeless guys his good fortune. Homeless guys began melting out of the scenery asking for their $5. I realized my mistake at that point and stopped being generous. They apparently turned their anger on one eye and stabbed him for his $5. I found out when questioned by police. I let another driver get in front of me in the fast lane when I could have sped up and blocked him. He sped up to about 80 miles per hour and a half mile down the road from me he rear-ended a car that blew a tire and wrecked. I did not check the news to see if anyone died and I never will. Answered whether a dress made her look fat. Would not recommend. Why do people even ask that question if they don't want to hear the answer? My best friend really liked this girl and he was trying to get her attention, so he asked me what would get my attention. I gave him advice. Boosted his ego. He was really appreciative of my help. Said thanks so many times. Then I didn't hear from him for months. I sent messages. I called. And nothing. Then I saw him on the street. I said hi. He ignored me and kept walking. Naturally, I was very confused and hurt and didn't know what happened. So I started asking my other friends. Apparently he was still talking to them, so it was just me. On my final attempt to talk to him, about 7 months later, he told me that he was dating the girl that he asked my advice on. He told me she really hates you. Wow. Thanks. Considering I've never even met the chick. So basically, this girl told him to never talk to me again if he wanted to date her. He chose her. I haven't spoken to him in years. TLDR, I pushed a friend to ask out this girl. She makes him never speak to me again. I saved a bird that was stuck in a fence. It was a wooden privacy fence and the bird had managed to get its head stuck in between 2 boards of the fence. All I had to do was grab the bird and lift it up above the boards. Anyway, it pooped on me. I was waiting for bus when I saw a middle-aged woman who looked really sad and was apparently crying. Being the socially awkward person I am, I struggled with myself for a bit because I wanted to help her, but I didn't have the courage to. When I finally managed to ask her, in my kindest tone, if she needed any help, she started screaming at me and told me I had to stop bothering her. Turned out she was mentally unstable. I know it's not exactly a horrible backfire, but it was quite sad to me. Especially because of all the effort that took me to bring up the courage to try and help her. My best friend was having a horrible day, so I took her and her 3 kids to a nice restaurant to give her a break. When we were almost finished eating, she pulled a 1.5 long hair out of her mashed potatoes and nearly puked. My wife and I were flying from Montreal to Vienna 2 years ago. We were flying coach, so of course, we're the last to board. I see a lady sleeping in the waiting room at the gate. Good Samaritan that I like to think I am. I gently wake her and ask her if she's going to Vienna. She says that. Yes, she is. So I tell her that it's final boarding. Away we go and she gets on behind us. As we're taking our seats, she goes by us and we smell the alcohol vapors. Oh no. Anyway, we get our seat belts on, and they start pushing the plane out to the taxiway. The flight attendants go through the cabin checking seat belts. But when they get to drunk lady, they can't wake her up. So, overcome all the flight attendants, shaking her, trying to wake her up. Finally they start calling for a doctor on the flight. Someone speaks up and is a nurse. They try and fail. So, back the plane goes to the gate. On come the M's and haul her out. 2 hours later we're sitting at the gate while they try to find her luggage to pull off the flight. I sank deep into my seat and hoped like hell no one saw me wake her up to get on the flight. TLDR, woke up a woman who was going to miss her flight. Got the flight delayed by almost 3 hours when they couldn't wake her up for pre-flight check. Edit location names. My laptop had just died when I found a MacBook Pro at a park with no one around to claim it. I hung around the laptop for about half an hour and no one came forward. I tried to find out the owner, but it was password protected and I didn't want to mess with it. My wife, being the ethical angel on my shoulder, convinced me to turn it in with the caveat that I could keep it if no one claimed it. I took it to the police station. Before I handed it over, I asked about their found property policy and the desk person said, 90 days and if it isn't claimed, it's yours. Sweet. I might get a free laptop without the guilt of stealing it from someone. So I went out to my car and got the laptop and turned it in. The detective saw the laptop and said, "Oh, not computers. We destroy those after 90 days. God damn it." I was at a club and saw my friend's girlfriend sitting in a booth, not looking so great. I decided to go over to help. I told my friend he should probably take her home and helped her to start walking outside. She then threw up all over my sports jacket. At that point, I had vomit all over me and the bouncer wanted her gone ASAP. So I had to leave the club in a hurry. In all the excitement, I forgot that I had left my tab open, which at this club required both your driver's license and credit card. By the time I realized this, I was about 25 miles away with no hope of going back. I called another of my friends who was still there to close it for me. He called back to say that they didn't have my ID or credit card, but that the bartender had given him someone else's ID instead. He was pretty drunk, so I wasn't sure what was going on. I later called the club about 20 times and went back there, but no ID or credit card. So when I was a kid, 20 years ago, my dad and I were leaving Denny's on a Sunday morning. My dad was holding open the door for a middle-aged white woman who looked like she was coming back from church. She said, "OHH, look Arengata," holding the door open for me. Both my dad and I are about as white as you can get. Now this is the 90s and she clearly knew better than to say that in public. Kicker of it all is the white church lady didn't realize there was a black lady behind her. The black lady said, "Excuse me?" And my dad without missing a beat said, "Did you hear what she called you?" He then quickly ushered me away and we left before things got too ugly. I can only imagine how awkward or explosive the next few minutes in that Denny's lobby were. I saw a woman litter right next to a trash can and I was walking behind her, as I thought I was out of her peripherals. I picked up the trash and threw it away. She apparently saw me and for some unknown reason became belligerent as if I had just insulted her. She then proceeded to try and hand me more trash whilst exclaiming fairly irately that if litter bothered me so much I should throw it all away. One of the weirdest encounters of my life.